are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast. I'm Dylan Watching on Twitter. Hey, talking the latest Auburn athletics news. As guess what, everybody? Guess what? It is officially game week. I know kind of yesterday was, but regardless, it's game week. Auburn plays this Friday at Baylor at 7 o'clock p.m. CST. And yesterday, Hugh and Dave Aranda both had a press conference discussing what to expect from either team and, of course, their own teams going into this week. And there was a lot of interesting things said. And, of course, also to add on to that, the depth chart for Auburn was also released. But I'll get into that later on in the show. It's very interesting talking points come out of the depth chart. But what I want to talk about is kind of like the key battles was talked about a lot in these press conferences. Just talk about how Dave Aranda is going to adjust and try to stop Auburn's run game, which I find very odd. That's the starting point for Dave Aranda, is trying to stop Auburn's run game, which I feel like this year it's going to be more in the pass game. Probably should be shut down first. There's a lot more question marks surrounding the run game going into the season rather than the passing game. Of course, Jackson Arnold has a lot to say about how good the passing game will be, but Auburn has one of the deepest, wide receiver rooms in the country, if not the deepest room. And again, that's evident in the depth chart, which again, go over that in just a second. But yeah, it's just funny. It's just a little odd that is the issue that Dave Aranda sees is the downhill run game of Auburn. And I really don't think it's like something Auburn that should be discussed as Auburn's strength. And I find that very odd, especially because Dave Aranda is a very good defensive coach. And I know a couple years ago they did get like 3-9 and they bounced back. And, I think some people have them as a favorite to win the Big 12 going into this year. They are a very solid team that is going to do very well this year. But this game comes down to a couple of things that, again, we'll be talking about throughout the week. But something Dave Aranda does very well as a defensive coach is putting his guys in the right place. And I think it's like a talent standpoint, I think this does lean Auburn defensively, but I do think Dave Aranda and DJ Durkin both are equal in terms of how they coach their defenses. So I find that very interesting to see. And of course, Dave Aranda, he hasn't seen Jackson Arnold before, but he's going to know how to scheme for a dual threat guy. He has seen him plenty of times, with the guys like I blanked on TCU's quarterback, but with guys like Sam Levitt at Arizona State is where I wanted to go with that. A guy who is mobile and is also able to make the throws down the field. So he's seen these types of quarterbacks before, and he definitely saw them whenever he was the defensive coordinator at LSU, and he knows how to adjust to that. So it's going to be up to Jackson Arnold, who Hugh mentions that has been progressing extremely nice and well during practice. But something I found odd about Hugh when he said this was the fact that he said that he wishes Jackson Arnold would stay in the pocket longer, which I feel like is a disservice to the talent that Jackson Arnold has, because, you really get him for his mobile ability. That is a strong suit that he has. It's something that we saw, it's kind of the reason Oklahoma was able to take down Alabama was because of Jackson Arnold's ability to make plays with his legs. Now, you don't want that every single time out of your quarterback, I think, but there will be some designed quarterback runs for Auburn. And even Dave Aranda understands that and has mentioned that Jackson Arnold's ability to run the ball is going to be worrisome. But it's kind of a mix, and both are kind of like combating strategies. Dave Aranda's worried about Jackson Arnold's ability to run the ball, and then Hugh is a little worried about his ability to not leave the pocket. But I mean, that could just be as simple as, maybe he just needs to stay in a little earlier and lead the defense just a second longer. Because I do think this offensive line does have the edge here. And it's hard because I feel like I'm an SEC homer saying that. I do think there's a lot of edge towards Auburn in this matchup when it comes to talent and just overall girth of the offensive line. But again, this is not the preview show, so I can't get too far into that. Another thing that they kind of both mentioned was, this offensive line mentioning how Baylor is going to want to blitz a lot. And again, when it's mentioned that Baylor's strategy is to stop the downhill run game, they're going to blitz a lot in that regard. So it's going to be up to Hugh Freeze to make sure that, you can identify those blitzes early and adjust however you need the play to go. I mean, it's RPO games can be shut down very easily with the right blitzes. So I do think that Hugh Freeze has to adjust for that. Of course, we're going to have 3 play callers. Everyone's aware of that. Hugh Freeze, Derek Nix, and Ken Austin. I forgot the exact pathways. I think it's Derek Nix on first down, Hugh on second, and Kent Austin on third down, if I'm mistaken, or it's Hugh at third and Kent at second. It's something crazy that's already been memed about a couple of times. But I do think that Auburn's offensive line, interiorly is very solid. And, you add an Xavier Chaplin, who's going to be a very good starter for Auburn. This is one of the best offensive lines we've seen from Auburn, and they have to play like it because, we've said this a lot, because Auburn has been trying to rekindle the magic of offensive lines of old for the past few years, and I've struggled to do so. But I do think this offensive line can live up to that hype. Another topic that was talked about, of course, was this Auburn wide receiver room versus this Baylor secondary. Of course, Baylor will be out one of their star safeties in Carl Williams, but that's an edge in Auburn's direction. Cam Coleman is going to have a day. Eric Singleton, a projected first round pick. There we go. Is going to have plays ran for him and to him. And of course, my guy Horatio Fields, Hugh Freeze mentioned he's been getting a lot of votes. I'm sorry, I'm looking over at the wall now because there's like a spider crawling on a door, so that's cool. Horatio Fields been getting a lot of votes to be a team captain, and some of you really love to see. And I hope to see a lot of Perry Thompson. That is a guy who I am so desperately waiting to see break out at some point this year. And he is due for a season where he does the thing, because Perry Thompson is uber talented and was again one of those key contributors to why that 2024 class was as loaded as it was. As some other things they kind of talked about, kicking was another thing Auburn talked about when it comes to depth. I'll get to more in the depth chart, but Alex McPherson will kick on Friday. But if need be, other guys are ready to go. And of course, that means Towns Magoo and Connor Gibbs, the transfer that Auburn picked up this offseason. Eric Singleton has also been improving throughout the fall camp. He dealt with a little bit of an injury, but he will be playing. Louis Brown, the fourth, a guy that Auburn is going to have to scheme for wide receiver, defensive back wise. Jay Crawford, Kyan Lee, and of course Ryan Strader and Rayshawn Pleasant are going to be key here in this game. And of course those Nichols guys too, Champ Anthony. Ooh, if Champ Anthony can play like he did versus Arkansas and stay healthy, ooh, SEC Player of the Week in Week 1. I can see it happening. But just another topic that Hugh Freeze mentioned in this was, of course, mistake-free football. And we all know it. We've all watched Auburn football. Auburn should have won a lot more games last year than they did, but due to their inability to keep the ball in the hands of the guys wearing orange and blue, they lost those games. Cal, Arkansas, Oklahoma all come to mind extremely easily in games that Auburn should have won last year, but threw the game away. So Hugh Freeze emphasized he doesn't want Auburn to be like that, which, easiest thing for coach to say. I don't want my team throwing the ball to the other team. I don't want my team giving the ball to the other team in any way, shape, or form. Of course, that's another thing that Jackson Arnold's going to have to overcome as well in this game and just in this season in general. He had a bit of the fumbling Fannin disease last year where he was actively dropping the football. I think he had 8 fumbles last year. And, Auburn, as a team was bad about turning over the ball. They were last in the SEC in turnover ratio and percentage. Like, they were very bad about keeping the ball to themselves. So you can't allow Baylor to take the ball from you. But it's up to, if there is one, and, in the SEC and just in college football in general, there's bound to be at least like one a game. Jackson Arnold's confidence has been one of the major talking points throughout this entire year. And it's going to be big time to see how he comes back after a mistake or after one bad drive. Just kind of see how he continues to build. Can he revert back to full confidence after one bad drive? Or just completely shot. And again, Jackson Arnold's been talked about very highly throughout the entire offseason by Hugh and by everybody who covers him in the media. Jackson Arnold is the major key here for Auburn. And of course, on Thursday, we'll be previewing this game where we're going to be talking about that a whole lot more. We're talking about Jackson Arnold versus Sawyer Robertson. And again, Sawyer Robertson is a very talented quarterback that I think is going to give Auburn some fits. And I think I won't get too far into who I think is going to be the key player there for Auburn. You have to stay tuned to the Thursday show for that. But again, for Auburn to win this game, they're going to have to recognize and shut down Baylor's blitzes. Have your wide receivers go off. If they're planning for the run game, Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton, Perry Thompson, Horatio Fields, Bryce Kane, yada, 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 are ready. Malcolm Simmons are ready to go. And, there are design plays for every single one of those guys to get the football. And if Baylor's dealing with some injuries in the secondary, Auburn can exploit that. And it's just up to Jackson Arnold to make sure that they are prepared and make sure Jackson Arnold himself is prepared and can make consistent throws down the field and make smart throws, make your reads, progressions without making mistakes. And that's going to be a big time thing for Auburn. Of course, I'm not going to make a prediction right now. That'll be for Thursday. Thursday, of course, will be the preview show. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be previewing Auburn versus Baylor and also the top 10 games of the week outside the Auburn game. So we're going to quick little break. Outside this break, we're talking a little bit about this depth chart because I do think there's a lot of things we can talk about with it. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Are you tired of having to rummage through just clothes after clothes after clothes looking for something to wear? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for your terrible fashion sense? Well, do we have the shirt for you? Go to thewarreport.com, get your laptop out and do it right now. Go to the shop and get your very own Feelin' Loopy t-shirt as well as your college loop hat, and you can get both of them for only $25 each. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But with that, now back to your regular scheduled program.
Of course, you can get those on thewarreport.com. Of course, it's not much for the channel. The best way to support the channel, of course, by liking the video, by commenting on the video. Let me know what you think about these matchups for Auburn versus Baylor. And, of course, subscribing to the YouTube channel. Getting so very close to getting to that beautiful 1,000 number. So it'd be super cool to reach that milestone at some point in my lifetime. But during football season will also work as well. So, Auburn has released their depth chart. And not a lot of shockers around the place. I mean, looking at the defense, it's a whole lot of oars. A whole lot of oars. So, can best assume that the guys at the top are going to be the guys who are going to be the first guys out on the field. So you look at Zykevious Walker and Malik Blockton, or I guess Zykevious Walker and Bobby Travis being your two interior D linemen, your outerior or exterior. There we go. Keldrick Falk and Kieran Crawford as the edge rusher. Linebackers got DeMarcus Riddick, Robert Woodyard, and Xavier Atkins. At the star, got Sylvester Smith. At the free safety, you got Champ Anthony, which I think is awesome. But also, I was fully thinking he was going to be the star role. But I mean, I'm not opposed to Champ Anthony as much as I possibly can see him on the field. Caleb Harris at the BS, the other safety. I don't know what BS means, so I had to giggle a little bit when I saw that. And your starting corners, Kyan Lee and Jay Crawford, of course, Ryan Strader and Rayshon Pleasant right behind them. And of course, you got some freshmen to talk about here. Eric Winters is right behind Caleb Harris. Blake Woodby right behind, Blake Woodby and Jonathan Starr right behind Rayshon Pleasant and Rayon Strader. Also got JJ Falk up here, Bryce Diaz, who, I don't know if you've seen the picture of Bryce Diaz at practice. Dude is an absolute unit. Also got Jordan Crawford, Malik Autry right behind Malik Blockton for Malik Mayhem. And they got a few of the guys all around the place. Jordan Crawford, of course, Darian Smith, all the guys we've been talking about all off season long. let's go with special teams next. I love the special teams. Kickoff specialist Towns Magoo or Connor Gibbs taking over that spot, not Alex McPherson. Long snapper Reed Hughes, not surprised by that. The fifth year senior at this point. Eric Singleton taking over the punt returner spot. Rayshawn Pleasant, kick returner, the electric kick returner out of Tulane, who could give Auburn their first kick return touchdown in quite some time. At holder and punter is Hudson Cock. At kicker is Alex McPherson or Towns Magoo or Connor Gibbs. Now, again, that kind of goes back to what Hugh said earlier. Alex McPherson is going to be the kicker, but, if he is not good to go, the other guys can take over. And he's confident in the abilities. Despite last year for Towns Magoo, they do think he can bounce back. And, Towns Magoo, very talented kicker coming out of high school. Offensively, so Jackson Arnold is your starting quarterback, and Deuce Knight or Ashton Daniels as a second-string quarterback. So, again, you can see those guys at any point. There will be schemes for them if they need to. Ashton Daniels probably be more of like how you kind of saw Robbie Ashford was in the red zone, just kind of give them that extra element as a quarterback with the ability to run. So I can expect a lot of trick plays out of that. Running back, Damari Alston and the Jeremiah Cobb and Darrell Robinson at that or spot. So, yeah, Damari Alston getting I don't think his first career start at running back. It definitely is not his first career start, but starting off the year as the starting running back with it being his year to shine. At tight end, got Brandon Frazier. At the offensive line, no shocker for this. Right tackle to left tackle, Mason Murphy, Jeremiah Wright, Connor Liu, Dylan Wade, and Xavier Chaplin. And now the one people have been talking about the most is this wide receiver room. Cam Coleman or Sam Turner, Horatio Fields or Perry Thompson, Eric Singleton or Malcolm Simmons or Bryce Kane. Now, a lot of people were trying to say, I understand like the SEO, trying to get some nice engagement and whatnot, but your starting wide receivers are going to be Eric Singleton, Horatio Fields, and Cam Coleman, and then the other guys are going to be kind of switching in if they can. All this says, and the same thing as the defense side of the ball, whenever there's having any ors, it's less about an uncertainty. There we go. That's a word. Uncertainty is not a word. Uncertainty is a word. It's more of an uncertainty. It's less an uncertainty of what you have and more of a confidence level in what you can do with these guys. So whenever you see all those ors, just know it just means Auburn's wide receiver room is just that deep. And if anyone's saying otherwise, they don't know ball. Auburn has the deepest wide receiver room in the country, if not one of. And, everyone and their mother knows that. Cam Coleman is an absolute dog. Eric Singleton, dog. Perry Thompson, dog. Horatio Fields is a big dog. Bryce Kane, dog. Malcolm Simmons, dog. Auburn has a wide receiver room full of dogs that can get it done in any game. There's gonna be at least like a 3 or 4 game stretch of games where it's a different wide receiver having a major impact. And I do think this offense is better. And this is a year where Hugh Freeze has to get it done offensively. They have to win football games. I think anything less than 8-4 is just completely unacceptable. And I desperately think that anything less than 8-4 means it could be a fireable offense. 7-5 and lower. This schedule is manageable. You got some tough games early, but you got a smooth sailing, as it should be. It should be an easy sailing until you get to Bama. And then this is I don't want to say a do or die year, but you got to beat Alabama. You got to get over the hump. You've been close in back-to-back years. You got to get it done. I'm not that high on Alabama this year. I think they're a very good team. I just don't think they're the Bama team anymore. They're not a team that, when you saw Nick Saban, you were like, oh, well, that's a loss. I don't think that anymore. I think there's a lot of question marks on this Bama team that people aren't saying. I'm not sold on Ty Simpson. I'm going to need to see Ty Simpson do some, I don't say crazy stuff, but, I think Ty Simpson, if he's a game manager, I don't think that's a worthy cause to give him a Heisman Trophy like people have been giving him. I'm not high on Ty Simpson yet. I don't think he should be in this conversation for a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the SEC because he's not seeing the playing time. And it even goes like, I don't believe that Arch Manning should be named the number 1 quarterback in the SEC. I have him at top 5. I have him at number 5. But that's because I've seen Arch play before. I have not seen Ty Simpson. And when it has been Ty Simpson, it's been late in games when the game is all but over. It's like 48-10. It's all right, put Ty Simpson out there. Not sold on it yet. So, do or die year for Hugh Freeze. Talked a lot about Baylor. We're talking more about Baylor on Thursday, previewing Auburn at Baylor because Friday evening, sorry, I had to shake the desk a little bit. Friday evening, we're going to be sitting on the couch watching an Auburn football game. And hopefully, I'll be on the War Report Friday evening, happy that Auburn has started the season off 1-0 versus a Power 4 opponent, because that game is a must-win, and it sets the tone for how the remainder of the season will look and how Auburn will go the first 5 weeks. I think that Baylor game says a lot about what Auburn can do against a team like Oklahoma, like a team like Texas A&M. I think that does a lot for Auburn moving forward. But that's going to do some of the College Loop podcast. Of course, I'm Dylan Larck on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram as well at Dylan Larck, DYLNLARCK. You can also find me as well at Tank Talks Football and at your boy the Tank on TikTok and Instagram. And I think Facebook, but I don't think Facebook kind of works. I don't think the name change hasn't gone through yet on there. But of course, you can find me there. Trying to post more SEC content. I posted something yesterday. Just kind of do my part 1 of my SEC preview series where I'm just kind of going over. I think I did 8 teams. Like I do 8 tomorrow, or today. I'll do tomorrow. Do Wednesday. Give me some time to make all of them. Make sure they all look nice. But of course, that's going to do it for the College Loop podcast yet again. And don't forget to like the video, comment what are your early thoughts on this Auburn at Baylor game. Of course, I might do a shout out if you get the score correct for the Sunday show. Of course, Sunday means back to live streams. We're going to be back going live. Been doing pre-recorded shows every Sunday, but we're going back to being live for Auburn football season, talking and reviewing the games ourselves. And of course, with that being said, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Getting us to 1,000 subscribers would be super cool. But that being said, thanks for tuning into some of College League podcasts yet again. And as always, War Eagle.